Hey Photoshoppers, welcome back. We are going to be going over selection methods in this first exercise, and it should be a really quick exercise for you. So to get started, go ahead and save this file that I've also linked here. It's called 03A Chucks, and I already have that open and ready to go in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, it should look something like this. And if you take a look at my screen, it's already set up to be the digital graphics layout. If you don't know what that means, please go back and watch the lecture titled Workspace Settings. And I've already got my layer manager open. And one thing that I did is I turned off all of the layers except for one of them. So please take a moment to pause, and you can see that if I click on the eyeballs, they turn back on, meaning they're visible. But again, what I'd like you to do is turn off all of the layers so that the only one that is visible and selected is quick selection. So go ahead and pause and come right back. Now before we get going, I wanted to also remind you from one of our first lectures is if you can, go ahead and open this up on another screen or another device if possible. But if not, remember you can go ahead and pause and keep coming back. Even if you're on another device, please hit pause and keep coming back here. Again, this exercise is meant to go by really quickly. It's not meant to be perfect. In our next exercise that we're going to be doing, which is the advanced selection methods, you'll see a more advanced way of selecting these so that they're perfect. What we'll be doing is going over how to select items in Photoshop in order to quickly mask them. That's really the simplest and most efficient ways to mask items in Photoshop. Again, first we select it and then we mask it. This will be a quick exercise, and then following this one again, we will go ahead and kind of perfect our technique so it starts to look more professional. The point of this exercise is just to get you familiar with the different techniques that are available to you. And throughout this semester, you'll kind of hone in your skills and find out which one you like the best, and then which one works best in different situations. So again, please make sure that everything else is turned off, and the only one that is selected is W Quick Selection, and you know that this is the one that's selected because it's a lighter gray. If I come down here and click on L Magnetic, this one is now the one that's selected and current. So make sure you're here, and again, I'm in V, or the selection tool, which is this toolbar right here. All right. So let's go ahead and get going on selecting and masking. So for this first one, you can see that the layer is called W and then Quick Selection. So I'm going to pull my cursor back on the middle of the screen just so it's easy to see, and take a look at my toolbar tool. That's going to be dynamic as well. When I hit W, it changes my screen, my cursor, so now it's a target, and then over here you can see that it's selected the W, or the object selection tools, and they're called W's because they started out being wands. Now you can see that I have asked for W Quick Selection. So what I want you to do after you hit W, come find your tool here. It might look different than mine. Right click on the tool and then find the Quick Selection tool and then click on it. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time, starting with the Move Selection. So the shortcut is W, and then what we want to do is go over to the toolbar to see what else is nested here. And you can see I have three choices: Object Selection, Quick, and Magic Wand. And looking over at my layer list, we want to start at W Quick Selection. So I'm going to click on the Quick Selection tool, and everything else really should be default Photoshop stuff. Now, if you don't see a target on your screen, but you see a plus sign with the circle, this goes back to our photoshopping for gold. You can have different selection sizes. So right now you can see that mine is getting bigger and larger. So if you want your screen to look exactly like mine, make sure that caps lock is off. And on my screen right now, I changed my brush size to be 70. Do you see right here, there's a 70? And similar to my other brush, when we were going through photoshopping with gold, if I right click, nope, it's not there anymore. Sorry, I lied. Go ahead and use this shortcut up here. That's how your screen will look just like mine. Go ahead and pause if you need a minute to. But after you get your screen where you have W quick selection and a 70 pixel brush, go ahead and meet me back here. And what we're going to do is again check to see that we are on W quick selection layer, everything else is off. And we're going to hold down our left click, and I'm not letting it go. I'm holding on to it and dragging it. And I'm going to see how much of this shoe I can select using the quick selection command. That's right, the quick selection tool. That's me talking with my Revit and AutoCAD brain. And then once you think you have enough of it, let go. Remember, we're not trying to be perfect here. Now let's say you accidentally lost it. Not a big deal. I'm going to hit Control D. That deselects it. Did you see that like my selection went away? So I'm going to do it one more time. So it's a click and a drag. And what you see on your screen, it kind of looks like a dashed line. These are referred to as little ants. They're called ants marching. That's really the technical term. So you can see that there's little ants marching on your screen, showing what you have selected. You can see my cursor kind of outlining it. That lets you know what has been selected. And again, to deselect it, you hit Control D or Command D. So right now, if I hit Command D, it goes away. Third time's a charm. Again, not trying to be perfect. We're just seeing what we can get with this tool here. Okay. And then once I think I have a good selection, what we want to do is add a mask to it. Because in this case, what I'm trying to imagine is I want to Photoshop the shoe onto a different background. So I want to isolate it from this white background right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button right here. It's called Add Layer Mask. So it's a white rectangle with that same gray background. And as soon as I click it, you can see, one, it adds the layer mask up here in my layer toolbar. And then here, if you see that gray and white checkered background, that means what? What does gray and white checkered mean? Does it mean it's going to print gray and white checker? Hopefully you said no. Gray and white checker indicates transparency. That means that the white background is gone. It's totally transparent and isolated now. So that's our first one. So you can kind of decide, how well did quick selection work? This is one of my favorites. I think it works really well, but let's move on and see how the others do. So to move on, let's turn off this layer and let's move down to W Magic Wand. Make sure to turn it on, make sure to select it. And just like before, we're gonna hit W again, right click, and let's find the Magic Wand tool. And remember, this isn't going to be perfect. We're just trying our best. And keep clicking in here. Might not look that great. Might look terrible. I don't even know what I have right now. So that's it. Remember, I said don't spend too much time on it. Just spend as much time as I am. So you can see the magic wand for what we're doing right now to get a shoe isolated. Not that magic. We're not very impressed. Let's go ahead and click on the Add Layer Mask. And yeah, not so great. That didn't work too well. You can see that it actually selected the shoe more than it did the background. Not great. Let's try something here. I'm going to do kind of bonus content. So you can see that because it pretty much selected the opposite of what we wanted, we can actually invert the layer mask. So if you ever accidentally grab the opposite of what you wanted, don't start over. Don't hit Control Z and undo it or go through your history. What you can do is click on the layer mask, and then I'm going to hit Command I or Control I for invert, and look what it does now. So we have mostly shoe, but we kind of got rid of all the white. And again, depending on where you clicked, your screen could look completely different from mine. Don't sweat it. This is just to, again, do a quick exercise to learn about how the different selection tools work. Now, the magic wand right now, like I said, not very magic, but in a few weeks when we start doing color selection and changing colors on different items, we will love the magic wand tool. Okay, let's move on from there. I don't want to spend any more time on that. You can see the next one is called W Object Selection. So I'm going to turn this on, and just to make sure I'm still in wand, I hit W, I come up and I right click, and here is my last one, Object Selection. At least, well, my last one on the wands. Now here's where I get to sound like an old lady. And the reason why I get to sound like an old lady is up until, gosh, 6 months ago, this didn't exist, this object selection. And I am not kidding you when I say that the object selection really blows my mind with how easy it makes selecting objects. So I get to say things like, oh, you guys don't know how easy you have it. Back in my day, we had to select everything by hand or select everything going uphill both ways. But check this out. If I want the shoe, can you guys see my cursor dancing around? Essentially, all I need to do is draw a rectangle around the shoe, let go, and then Photoshop does its magic, and it does a pretty good job finding the shoe. Now, I know that that might not be too impressive to you, but I have done the object selection on pictures of people in crowds, and I'm amazed at how well it can grab objects. It looks like it missed the toe. That's okay. You know, we're just trying to get a good gauge of what these different things can do. So just like before, I'm just going to do it like a one and done for these. I'm going to turn on my layer mask. That's what it got. Not perfect, but gives you an idea of what it does. Okay, now we're moving on to a different type of tool. So up until now we've been using the wands. Now we're doing lassos. So you can see that it's L for lasso. And when I come up here to my toolbar and right click, I've got 3 different lassos. I've got lasso, the polygonal, and the magnetic. So let me start with the lasso tool. So if you look at my cursor, I do have a lasso. And the lasso, you have to essentially click and hold. Kind of drives me crazy. And you're essentially just tracing around the object. If you have any sort of carpal tunnel or tendinitis, you're going to hate this. Because holding on to your mouse while you trace something on a computer screen, not ideal. Okay, there's the lasso. Definitely not perfect, but again, we're just trying to get an idea of what each one of these do. I'm going to throw a quick mask on it. That's what we get. Okay, so a lasso is a click and hold. Let's try the next one. This is called the magnetic lasso. It works really similar to the lasso, but this time you don't have to click and hold. You just click and drag, and every once in a while you can click to kind of help it know what to attach to. You know, just kind of give it some encouragement. All of these dots that it's making, it kind of puts these nodes down. Now, let me show you an example. Let's say that my nodes go crazy, right? If you hit delete or backspace and kind of follow those nodes, see how my cursor is really close to each one of those? Eventually, you will get back to where you started. Not perfect. I had to hit delete. I don't know if you could hear my keyboard. I had to hit it about 10 times. But it does eventually get back to where you were. Now, I've done this for a long time, so it's not going horribly. It's going well. But since you're, doing this for your first time, I mean, if yours ends up looking like this, remember, at any point you can hit Control D and start over. You can hit escape and start over, just like I am right now. But remember, the point of this isn't to be perfect. We're just quickly going through the different selection methods so that you kind of get an understanding of what they are. And as you're working with them, really start to kind of figure out which one you like, or which one you might like for different things. Okay, there's my magnetic lasso. Now, just like before, I'm going to click on this layer mask, and that white background is gone. So I have isolated the shoe again. All right, now we're down to our last one. So I'm going to turn off the magnetic, turn on the polygonal, right click, polygonal. Now this one works a lot like the other lasso tool, but you can see it's a straight line and I don't have to hold it down. So every time I want to kind of drop that line or trace that line, I click. So this one you can get pretty precise, but on things like curves, you have to click a ton. Whoops, I just lost mine. Oh, okay, so I clicked too many times. I double clicked, so it thought I was doing this. So in this situation, I hit Control D to deselect, and I'm just going to start over. Sometimes it's hard to click and talk, you know, even if you've done this for a while like I have. So you can see on something that's curved, it's a little bit choppy, but I do like this more than the lasso tool because I don't have to hold it down the whole time. I'd rather click a bunch than have to hold something down. Right, and then I'm going to go ahead and throw the mask on. That's what we get. So these are 6 different ways of selecting different objects in Photoshop. And by clicking the mask, it automatically paints in what needs to be black to be isolated and what needs to be white in order to be visible. Now, let me ask you before we get too far from this, if you accidentally did the opposite, if you grabbed the opposite of what you wanted, do you need to start over? Hopefully you're saying or thinking no right now. What can you do? Hopefully right now you're thinking invert it. And again, the shortcut for that is Control or Command I. I'm going to just show you what it does. So remember, in order for this to work, I have been on my layer mask the whole time. Okay, Control I. That inverts it for you. So this is it, just to introduce you to the selection methods, and then in our next lecture, I'm going to show you guys advanced selection methods. Thanks for following along with me.